Hi everyone, welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm Lisa Curcio. Today's card is featuring a brand new stamp set called Crafting Forever. I love the varied images that are all related to favorite crafts. Painting and sketching and drawing and of course stamping. So this is the card we're going to be making today. Really simple but lots of fun. I'm going to show you some fun techniques using that new pretty label punch. Remember when you're finished watching the video that you can click the information button here at the top of the screen. It will navigate you to my blog where you can find still pictures and of course a supply list. While you're there, check out my online classes tab. I've got a lot of fun ways for you to stamp with me from home. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started. Cute card, huh? I really liked the way that this turned out and it was really easy to do. Let's start with a piece of Bermuda Bay cardstock. You're going to find all the cutting dimensions over on my blog along with pictures and a supply list, so head over there. If you're here viewing from YouTube, you'll find that link by clicking the I button here at the top of the screen. It'll take you directly there, making it nice and easy for you. I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm a big fan of my bone folder for that nice crisp crease. And then here I'm going to do some stamping, but I'm going to be using Versamark ink. Versamark is a watermark stamp pad, and basically what it does is it takes the image of your stamp and actually dyes the cardstock the same tone to get that very subtle background. We're going to be using this set of pens, which is from the new stamp set called Crafting Forever. Ooh, I had to say I'm in love with it. Not just because I love to craft, but I have found this extremely versatile. So I'm going to actually use the Versamark to get that watermark impression. So I'm taking it on my clear block, I've mounted it, and I'm going to ink it up on the Versamark ink. Now Versamark is, like I said, a watermark pad, but it's also very sticky. I have better luck if I turn the paper horizontally and I stamp this way. So I'm going to stamp one here near the bottom. That's going to give me one set. Lots of firm, even pressure. I want to make sure I don't miss my image. And then I'm going to ink it again. You can see how I'm traveling across the pad to make sure that I'm not missing a spot. And then I'm going to line this up the very best I can, and I'm going to stamp it again. And you're going to see how all three pens probably won't fit off the edge of this cardstock, but that's fine because it's going to look like pattern paper by the time we're done. And then one more tip for you. If you have better luck, turn it this way if you find it's easier for you to ink. I actually kind of prefer that way, to be honest with you. This way I can make sure I've got ink everywhere. This one I'm actually going to turn so that I can get the pens as straight as I possibly can and as close as I can to the other one. Lots of firm, even pressure to make sure you get that whole image out. All right, so now we've got the border going across our card. Make sure you clean off your stamp right away. Versamark, like I said, leaves a very sticky residual. My scrub is off camera. One side I leave wet. It's kind of like doing the dishes. Just get it wet. Get that ink off, and then the other side is dry. Now we're actually going to do some stamping on a scrap piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to use that exact same image, and this time I'm going to use the basic black archival ink, and I'm going to ink it up. Now this ink pad is firm, not like the others that are like foam, so they're a little bit softer. You're actually going to twist and stamp. I want to make sure I get all those fine lines covered very well. I always check. And I'm going to stamp my pens on that scrap piece of white cardstock. Again, I want to make sure that I trace that whole image out. I'm going to make sure I give that a couple seconds to dry because I find that the basic black archival ink, whether you're using black or the gray, it has a deep pigment, so it takes a couple extra seconds to dry. Now you're going to choose your pen of choice. I'm actually going to go with the striped one today. So I'm just going to take that one and cut it out. Save those other two for another card, and then this is where the fun begins. We're going to be using the markers. So I'm going to start with the Bermuda Bay marker, and this comes from the Brights collection. And I am actually going to color in some areas on here. Now let me bring it in a little bit closer. Starting here at the bottom, I'm going to start just by gently filling in every other stripe. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that's tedious. Well, I like to color. I've always liked to color. And the great thing about the Stampin' Up! Markers is this tip. Look at that. Can't beat that for precision, so it's going to get you in there nice and close. So I'm going to do this every other stripe. Or you can come up with any pattern that you like. If this is too fussy for you, color the whole thing in. Of course, you can use a blender pen or an aqua painter as well, if that's better for you. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this little area right here by the pen as well. I'm going to color that in. Now I'm switching over to the lemon lime twist. I keep saying this, but I keep joking that this is that color I told myself I was going to hate, that I absolutely have fallen in love with. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. This is one of the new in colors this year. I'll be honest with you, I've seen the color before Stampin' Up! Even introduced it in the new catalog. I saw it in home decor items, blankets and bedspreads. I've even seen it in clothing, and I was like, ew, who would ever like that? It's such a shocking color. But guess what? I'm in love with it. It goes with everything. And then I'm switching over to Soft Sky, a really nice smoky gray. And that's going to do the whole tip of the pen for me, just to make it look like it's in a barrel. So you can see that didn't take long at all. All right, but I want a little shimmer on here because I thought that made it look just a little bit more fancy. So I'm using my clear Wink of Stella. I've already primed and used mine before, so it's going to go on nice and easy. I'm just going to fill in that marker area here with the smoky slate. Going to be hard to appreciate shimmer on camera, but I promise you that it's there. It's really, really pretty. One thing about Wink of Stella, it does have an alcohol base. So if you put it over any color whatsoever, it's going to pick up some of that color. So always make sure that you take your pen off on your scratch paper. You can see there's some gray here to get that ink off of the tip of the Wink so you don't transfer it to another project. This also should be stored straight up and down so that the ink will flow nicely through the bristles. We're going to take our scissors because, wow, this is part of crafting, right? We're going to fussy cut this. And when I tell you it's not hard, I'm not kidding. It's really simple. I always recommend that when you cut, you leave a little bit of white cardstock around your image. That's going to ensure that you don't actually distort the image, but that you also have a little bit of a border. Now I can see here that I've got a little bit more than I like. And you know what? Normally that wouldn't bother me, but I'm going to mount this on a darker piece of cardstock. So I want to make sure I don't have too much. All right, so there we go. So now I've got my pen. Next thing I'm going to do on a scrap piece of white cardstock is I am going to stamp my greeting. And I use the words "just a note." And this comes from one of my favorite greeting stamp sets. It's called Flourishing Phrases. It's a two-piece set. As you can see, it's rather large. Lots of great words. So that's where I took the "just a note" from. These come with a rubber band so you can keep them together in your stamp room. Got my black ink again, so I'm going to ink and tap and travel. And then I'm going to stamp that right on top of here, firm, even pressure. I like to take my stamp and stamp it off on my scratch paper before I clean it on my Stampin' Scrub. And the reason is it helps to reduce the ink and it keeps my scrub cleaner a lot longer. I just find, especially when I'm stamping with friends, boy, that thing gets dirty really, really fast. So if I stamp off all the excess ink, that's going to help eliminate trips to rinse it out. All right, so here comes the fun part. We used this last week as well. This is the Pretty Label Punch. Really am enjoying this. I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to stick my words down inside. I'm going to center it just the very best that I can. I'm going to punch that out. But I want a border. So I'm actually going to punch it out with a coordinating piece of scrap. That's Bermuda Bay. And a coordinating piece of scrap from Lemon Lime Twist. All right, so now I've got all three colors that I've used on my card. And I want to border these. So it means I want to put one behind the other, but you can see that if you do this, they're the exact same size. So even if you moved one up, then you're missing on the bottom. So here's a tip for you. Take your paper snips and you're going to cut down right down the center of that label. And I'm going to do that on both colors. Do the other one here as well. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. I'm grabbing my snail adhesive and I'm going to add adhesive across the bottom. I should have used my silicone craft mat. Let me get that. This thing is like my best friend in my stamp room, and the reason is just for this. You can see if you get a little zealous with the adhesive, it ends up on your work surface and then rips your project. So adhesive will not stick to this. So I absolutely love that. So I'm going to pick up one end of this, and since the punch is symmetrical, I really don't have to worry about which half goes where. I'm going to line that up, leave myself a little bit of a border, and I'm going to press. I'm going to flip it over, and again, I'm going to come on the other side, Look, I don't have to worry about a sticky work surface now. And here is that other half. And I'm just going to do my very best to mimic that same depth that I created on the first half on the other side. So there we go. And then here comes the lemon lime twist. Now this time I'm going to lay it on top of here. And I'm going to do the same thing. And whether you want this deeper, wider, or shallower, that's completely up to you. And another piece here at the bottom. It's a great way to create those borders with those punches. And again, the exact same thing here. So look, isn't that fun? I'm going to push that aside, and I'm going to grab my card, flip that over, grabbing my dimensionals here. I'm going to take a couple of those. I'm going to do here and here. And I'm also going to do 2 on the other side, just because I'm cognizant of that postage meter. Take off that paper backing, and I'm going to mount that here. Now you're going to leave a little bit of room so that I can mount my pen. So remember that pen that we just stamped? All right, I'm going to push that to the side. Now you're going to see how these dimensionals are not going to fit. Good news is we have brand new mini dimensionals. But I found even with the smaller ones that they sometimes are a little bit too wide for these little tender areas. So I just take them and I cut them up the center. And those are my sticky scissors. That's why I didn't use my paper snips. I like to keep those nice and clean for cardstock. And take those off, and I'm going to lay one here, and I'm going to lay another here, being very careful to make sure it's not going to hang outside of the cardstock here. And then I think I can get one more here in the center, making sure that's not going to show as well. I always like to pick it up and make sure you can't see it. Yep, it's good. All right, so here's my card. I'm going to take off that paper backing. Positioning is entirely where you want it. You know what I just realized? I didn't use the label on this. Okay, I'm going to show you another one. If you were here in the stamp room and you saw my trash can some days, you would just get a really, really good giggle, because I'll tell you what, the struggle is real sometimes. It's not just you. All right, here's the one we created. But do you see this one? Don't you like this better? Okay, that label came from the same stamp set I used last week. It's called Label Me Pretty, and it's made specifically to coordinate with the Pretty Label Punch. So all I did was I took this beautiful filigreed label, and I stamped it on a piece of white cardstock scraps using the lemon lime twist. Oh my gosh, some days it's just harder than others, isn't it? Okay, and then of course I used my punch. I think that little bit of scroll work really adds a lot to this card. And there's my punch. And then, of course, I stamped my words, which, of course, would have looked a whole lot better. Now, aren't you guys glad that you see that I make mistakes just like you do? Yeah, I sure do. Lots and lots of them. On my original card, I stamped more pens across the bottom than I did today. You know what? It doesn't matter. I think as long as we've got a little bit of a border there to create a background, and again, with or without that real curly label background, I think I like it better, but I'd love to hear from you. So leave me a comment below and tell me which card you like the best. Curly label or no curly label? I'm so glad you guys joined me today. Thanks so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everyone.